My name is Kendyl Ito, and I attended Pace University's musical theater class from 2013 to 2017. So I started performing when I was 7. I saw a touring production of Beauty and the Beast when I was 5, and it came through to my town of Sacramento at the community center, and got bit by the bug, as we all do. And yeah, it was it. From 7 on, I was doing theater all the time. I did local theater and pretty much did it up until high school. And it was my joy. It was where I was able to express myself. I was able to do things that I didn't know I could do at the time, and found a passion for theater. And from there, you know, I'd always done it as a hobby, and I'd always done it as something that I just loved to do. And it was when I started applying to schools for when I was in high school. And I was looking at, you know, what I was going to do with my life, what was my career going to be, that kind of thing. I was 17 at the time, and I was in the middle of applying for schools, and I was doing a show at the time called Legally Blonde. And in this particular show, there was one day where I sat down with our director for the show, and, you know, he had a very honest conversation. We were sitting in the theater of Hiram Johnson, and he asked, where are you applying to in the next year? Like, where are you going to school? And I remember telling him that, you know, I was applying to, you know, UC schools. I was applying to Northeastern, American University. I was really interested at the time of focusing on academic-based colleges. I was looking at something that was not theater related, not performing arts related, nothing art related, because I was afraid to go try this and see if this was worth a career. And you know, I was telling him listing all these universities to him, and he like frowns, and he was puzzled, and he said, why aren't you applying to theater schools? And I said, oh, you know, like, I don't think I'll make it. Like, I don't think I'll do well in the business. And, you know, I was very insecure about myself. Even now, as I talk about it, looking back, I'm very insecure about that part of my life. With full confidence, he said, you should apply to some theater schools. You're really good. And I think you would do really, really good in this business. And I think you should go for it. And so I took that, and that was in the fall semester of my senior year of high school. And so last minute, I decided, I went home, I talked to my mom, I talked to my dad, and I was like, you know, I think I should try to apply to some schools. And so from there, I did a very quick kind of like, where am I gonna go? So from there, I did a lot of research. I looked at a lot of places in California. I primarily looked at schools in New York City. My list in terms of what I wanted in a program and where I wanted to go was very, very small, because I wanted to make sure that what I was applying into would be something that I would love, in a place that would allow myself as an artist to be in a training world that will feel what I need and how I can become a better artist at the end of the day. And so because of that, through all of that, the specificity of what I wanted, I found Pace. Pace was kind of one of the big ones that popped up on my radar. One, because they had an amazing array of diversity at their program. When you looked at, you know, videos of their class, it was diverse, and everything that the school emphasized in their marketing and websites, and, you know, how they branded themselves as a university and as a musical theater program was based on individual talents and uniqueness in that way. And so it was a huge it was a big one on my radar, Pace. And so, you know, went through the whole process, auditioned, and from there ended up, I remember I got a call during class. This was in the spring. I guess I should also go back and say that I was accepted into Pace University as a first alternate. What a first alternate means is that I was not an initial person to enter the university. I was not part of the class that was picked. I was in a list of people. So say if someone from that initial class were to defer, were to choose another school, decided not to go to the program, whatever that open spot was, the list of first alternates would go into that spot. So I wasn't a part of that. So I waited longer. I didn't hear about my acceptance into Pates until maybe like April-ish. But I remember I was in class and we were in the library that day and we were working on our senior projects or like our senior thesis or whatever it was, researching. And I remember we were in the library and we were doing the thing, studying, and and I got a phone call. My phone was buzzing, and it was a 212 number. So I was like, New York. I was like, I have to take this. And so I like really quickly went outside, asked the teachers first, but like went outside and hopped on the call. And it was someone from Pace. And I remember that. I mean, you always remember those moments. It's like, to me, it felt like joy. It felt like being seen. It felt absolutely incredible to just get this phone call to get into a program. It was like, I had never even considered it to be a possibility that I would actually get in someplace. I kind of did it as, I'm going to try and see what happens. And if it happens, it happens. And so it was unbelievably, it was inexplainable. I remember like going back into the library and I was so excited. And, there were people, friends, classmates cheering in a library hearing about the phone call. And to also make noise like that in a library was wild and exhilarating, and it's a moment I'll never forget. Theater and performing for me is huge because I didn't see myself in media. I didn't see myself in movies. I didn't see myself in TV. And if I did, there were Asian stereotypes. It was like, I remember growing up and one of the biggest films that I loved to watch as a kid, which is ironic now, but it was Charlie's Angels. And I loved watching Lucy Liu. And she was this incredible person to watch on the screen with power, but also as I watch it today too, even, it was sad because it was fetishized and there was something that was always objectified about Asian people in media in general. That, or I would just never saw anyone that looked like myself. There was nobody. And so for me, theater is a way to be seen, but also for Asians to be seen. And I feel like that we have a great responsibility in our art these days, in representation, but also telling stories that we haven't heard. That is why I want to do this. That is why I want to be an artist. That's why I want to be an actor, is to be a part of this incredible force to be seen and to have our stories be lived and realized, and that we're not a stereotype. We're not just sexy. We're not just the quirky, quiet person. We're not just the studious person. That we have minds and that we have emotions and hearts and that we're complex. That was something that I really, really didn't see growing up. And that's why I wanted to become an actor. Performing feels, it's so funny talking about this right now when we don't get to perform. performing is a kind of joy that I don't know if I can even express into words. It is, it's moving. It's sharing. It makes, I can only describe it in colors, ironically. I see like yellows and oranges and rainbow effect. Like that is what performing feels like to me. And it's a kind of energy that there is nothing else like it in the world. It is just that. It's beautiful. So when I had, or what I had thought what PACE was going to be, I thought it was going to be that rainbow effect. I thought it was going to be an inclusive, supportive, safe, open environment. I thought it was going to be, especially for, we're coming in as 17, 18-year-olds. We are so young. I was expecting it to be an area where I could freely explore myself in ways that I already knew who I was, but also in ways that, like, as I'm growing up and as I'm becoming more of an adult and getting into my own self, growing up, that I wanted an environment that was going to support that, to help harness into, like, this is who you can become too as well. And again, I think that was, seeing and meeting so many people who shared similar backgrounds. Where, like, we all come from various different parts of the country. We're all from different backgrounds and families and upbringings. Like, I thought that's what it was going to be. And it wasn't. It wasn't. And I feel like it was an environment that allowed some people to grow in that direction, to have all those experiences of coming into themselves and to realize who they are, what they want to do, who they want to be. And for other people, it felt like it was stuck, that we didn't have the same access and resources to have those fully realized growth and journeys that other people got to experience within the program. So here's what happened. When I got to PACE, first year, it was very exciting. It was everything in the student body population was what I wanted. It was heavily diverse, a beautiful array of various different kinds of performers with different backgrounds. It was colorful in the best way possible. And I really appreciated that student body. Starting after freshman year, after the excitement, having my first acting class, doing all the exciting things, one of the big things that we do at PACE is called Hatched, where it's this big concert, and it's kind of like a welcome to the world freshman babies, freshman class. And it was great. First year was great. Starting sophomore year, what we would call the sophomore slump, if you will, right? Things get, the honeymoon phase of theater school gets unveiled away. And I started getting moments of flags. And there were flags in senses that, like, I didn't quite understand what was happening, but I knew that there was something off, if you will. There was something that was that the thing that I had researched about the school, my impression of the school, my expectations of the school, it wasn't quite fitting in line with what I thought I had signed up for and what I thought I was entering into. Things that I started noticing within the classroom. One of the big things that I noticed was that we're obviously a heavily diverse student body population at PACE, and in my classes as well. My class is heavily diverse. Things that I was noticing was that we have a large student population of people of color, BIPOC people, and yet we didn't have a singular person that was faculty, administration, resident artists. So at PACE, we have people who are called resident artists, where we bring in someone for a semester, for a year, to come in and like workshop. They're essentially there for master classes. They work with classes in particular workshop style. And typically most resident artists are, they do like one big project, typically in the spring semester that they work on. So including those resident artists, we did not have a singular person of color. It wasn't until my junior year I had my first professor that was BIPOC identifying. And I just didn't see it across the faculty. And it felt strange that there were people who were teaching students of color who did not have that element of understanding our stories, of understanding our lives, where we grow up, how we move in the world, how we navigate in the world. And yet they were teaching us how to be ourselves when we enter, and how to be ourselves in our art, and how to be ourselves in the business, in the industry, in the art world that we are going to go into. And it felt strange. So because we had a lack of BIPOC representation within faculty members and teachers whose jobs was to educate young adolescent, coming to age adults becoming artists, there were moments where I believe they were not equipped to properly educate and be a mentor for peers who identify as BIPOC, such as myself. So my junior year, one course that we take at PACE is the MT Tech class. MT Tech is essentially what I guess you can consider acting through song. It's teaching you the skills of how to perform a song, a musical theater song, and act your way through it. Also at the same time, while continuing the journey of students such as myself and others who went through PACE's buildings and doors and halls and classrooms, to educate us about ourselves and to figure ourselves out and where our truths lie, how to stay open and vulnerable and available. One particular assignment that we are given through MT Tech is called the role assignment. And the role assignment is essentially you get to collaborate with your faculty member who is teaching it at the time, and you choose a particular role in any musical theater, play, musical, and you basically dive into it and take on the role as if you were going to play it one day, right? So you do all the research, you do investigating, you do all of the character development to play this role. Read the script, music, everything. It's essentially teaching you how to craft your own role in musical theater. When I came along this part in my PACE education, I had a professor who was not the normal hire. It was someone who came in as a replacement for a prior teacher. I think this is very important to note about PACE University, is that we had teachers that were cycling through often for various different reasons. But for my MT Tech class, I believe I had 3 different professors teaching this class. This same class with a very specific curriculum. 3 teachers were teaching that same class. That is a problem. The teacher who was teaching at the time of role assignment, he sent me an email. We had to email him about, here are my choices of options of what role I would want to do. And at that time, my training at Pace had only been quirky characters, comedic relief characters. I was wanting to play something that was either powerful. I wanted to play something that was complex. I wanted to play a role that was a love story, because I'd never been seen in a romantic leading lady way until that moment. And so I put down Kim, and I wanted to explore playing Kim in Miss Saigon. When we had discussed after class with the professor, he had emailed me the day before being like, hey, let's talk about this after class. So the next day rolls by, we're chatting, and we're talking about role assignment. And he's like, what? So what are you thinking for role assignment? And I told him, you know what? I really want to play Kim. I think I want to explore something a little more dramatic, something romantic, love story, and expressed that I wanted, to explore playing a leading lady, which I'd never had the opportunity up until then. And, we're talking about it, and he said, well, I think Miss Saigon would be too easy for you. And it was that the word easy felt strange to me. And I asked him, why would it be easy for me to play Kim? And then he said, well, And in that moment, I felt as if that my life as an Asian American woman was subjected into a singular person, that is Kim in Miss Saigon. That my history as a Yonsei Japanese American wanting to play a love story of someone wanting to be loved would be easy. And in that moment, I didn't know how to respond, because it was something that was so small and insignificant probably for the professor. Didn't know what he was saying. And yet it hurt me so much. It hurt me that my Asian experience can only be seen in one way, and that is too easy, and that I can never even attempt to play that, because that is too much a part of who I am, who my life is, what my life is. And so, not knowing what to do, I just dissuaded, and I asked, okay, maybe Kim's not right for me. What do you think in terms of the other options that I presented? And he looked at the list and he said, you know what, the one that really struck out to me was Adelaide from Guys and Dolls. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I'll do Adelaide. And for those who are not familiar with Guys and Dolls, Adelaide is a character about a woman desperately trying to get married. In ways you can say she is the comedic relief character of the show Guys and Dolls. And a lot of the traits in Adelaide of that funny, lighthearted humor that I had been doing a lot at Pace through my education of playing quirky, funny, comedic relief characters is there in Adelaide. And so when I took on the assignment and I was doing Adelaide in class, I sat through weeks and weeks of class, preparing the material, doing this research, character development, and got met with pretty much the same note every week, was that it's great. It's great, Kendyl. I have no notes. And I wonder if the reason why there were no notes was because I was already doing something that I knew I could do. And if it was something that I already had that element of who I am in me, was the reason why I was getting no feedback. And I wonder today what would have happened if I had chosen Kim, if I had chosen maybe not even Kim, but even just a character that was complex and serious and loved, a leading lady. Never played leading lady ever at Pace. What I could have learned at my time at Pace. But I can't take that time back. I'll only have to remember playing a quirky, funny woman that I already knew how to play. I wonder if in that moment, that professor had any idea about the nuances of playing an Asian part, Asian American, any sense of being an Asian part. This professor was white, is white, and I don't know if he had the knowledge of understanding that characters like Kim are not singular to one Asian person's experience. I don't know if he knew that. And for him to discredit a character like Kim as being easy for me on perhaps the implication that because I am Asian and that I will play Kim over and over and over again, that role would be easy. To this day, I have never been in Miss Saigon, ever. From freshman year to sophomore year, there were no performing opportunities for me. I didn't find moments to take what I was learning in the classroom into production or any sense of project mode within Pace. Because of that, learning that early on, I decided to find opportunities outside of the program in the city. Getting involved with organizations, with other theater companies, other groups of theater makers, and finding projects for myself. One of them being NAP, which is the National Asian Artist Project, located in Manhattan, specifically for Asian American artists, and was finding other opportunities and was finding other outlets because I wasn't getting them at Pace. And so then there was an opportunity to audition for Matilda, the national tour. With Matilda, the musical, I was in and out of auditions, callbacks, pretty much starting freshman year up until junior year. It was like in and out, you know. Sometimes, you know, because of timing or whatever, it was just, you know, never worked out, but I was consistently going in for this production. And it was in that moment that suddenly, my junior year, as I was communicating this, because part of our policy at Pace at that time when we were auditioning, looking for work, which we were allowed to do when I was at school, was to inform faculty and inform specifically the head of our program. So she knew that I was going in and out of this production often. And when that started happening, and specifically when that started happening to a point where I was in final callbacks often for this production, there was a shift. And suddenly, when that started happening, opportunities started coming to me at Pace. So in my junior year, I found myself getting projects every semester. I was in a musical in the fall. I did a Pace new musical. It's part of their new musical projects that take place during the winter session when everyone is off on break. I was cast in a production then, and then I was cast in something in the spring. So essentially I was doing, all of a sudden I went from years of nothing, no opportunities, and then junior year, it was happening practically every term. So when the opportunities started coming at Pace, and I was suddenly seeing myself, being a part of projects, which I was very excited about, to finally, get to work on something at Pace beyond the classroom. I put together some dots, and I started seeing that in these shows, I was always double casted to an extent, that I was always having to share this role or this part, whatever it was, with another person. And typically, the people that I was sharing it with were BIPOC identifying people. And because the projects that I took place in at Pace, one being Chorus Line, one being a new musical called Great Wall, which is about an Asian American family, and it's an Asian American story. And then the third one was American Idiot. 2 of the 3 shows that I was in were Asian specific, and the people that I was sharing it with were specifically Asian as well. And I found it strange that in a program that is teaching us about how to be an artist and applying real-world applications of theater into the classroom in these production settings at Pace, that we were double casting. It felt strange that we were in moments too, specifically talking about Great Wall, that myself and the other actor we were sharing the role with, we were the only ones in that show that was double casted. That particular part was shared, and no one else in that room had to share or double cast. It's also, I believe my understanding that double casting doesn't happen often at Pace. Certainly when I was there, I don't recall, outside of understudies, which is a completely different scenario, outside of swings, which is a different scenario, I don't recall there really ever having been incidences of shows where roles were being double casted, except for the ones that I was in. And it just felt strange. It felt like, great, okay, I'm being given this opportunity. I'm being given the thing that I was striving so much to have at Pace, was visibility and to be seen. It's finally happening. And yet, those experiences were limited to half a run of shows. That my visibility at Pace within these projects was only at half capacity. That my visibility at Pace is only worth half. You only get to see half of me. As well for my friends and colleagues who I had to share that with. They also were seen as half. They also were seen as half of that piece. And it sucked. It sucked. I don't think it's coincidental that the roles that I played at Pace was Connie Wong. And for those who don't know who Connie Wong is from Chorus Line, she is 4'10", Asian American. It's a very specific track to play. And then one of the other roles as well that I played at Pace was for Great Wall, another heavily Asian specific show where I was playing essentially a sexy executive. I don't think it's coincidental. I think those were intentional castings. And I think that has to deal with what this program is doing. The people who are in charge, who they are hiring to teach people like myself as an Asian American woman that my worth is specific to Asianness. That Kendyl is Asian, and therefore we should give her Asian stuff. But anything beyond that, any of the other productions that came through Pace that were not culturally specific towards the Asian realm or the Asian American experience, nothing, just not being seen for. That to an extent, I felt like I was being pigeonholed. She can be Connie Wong. She can be, it's so sad I can't even remember the name of this character that I played at Great Wall. Blocked it out. That is it. That we're gonna teach Kendyl that like this is who you are. This is the work that you're going to be doing in the real world, and that you should only be focusing on this. Asian American characters. From these roles, from these experiences, playing Connie Wong, quirky Asian American girl, playing the sexy executive part in Great Wall, quirky and sexy were the things that I was taught that I could do here in these parts. And this is a problem because these white people through Pace were teaching Asian Americans like myself how to be Asian through their lens, through the white lens, through stereotypes, through the things that I have seen repeatedly on media, in film and television for my entire life. Asians are quirky. Asians are sexy. That's us. And that is not true. There is so much more complexity, there is so much more depth, there is so much more humanness in ourselves because we're Asian. And it shouldn't have to be pigeonholed into those statements. Quirky and sexy. We see it so many times in this world, in this business, and Pace was one of them that taught me that is Asianness right there. That's where you'll succeed in life, is playing quirky and sexy. And it didn't sit well with me, and I didn't appreciate only being seen in that way. How I found myself getting through these experiences and coping was this. Holding it in, repressing, silence, and I taught myself to internalize, to take everything that I was feeling, because I was worried, maybe it's just me, and maybe this is just a personal thing. Like, not everyone is feeling this way. at pace. And I did. I just didn't talk about it. I just kept it all in, and that was my form of coping. That, if I don't talk about it with other people, if I just don't have the conversation, then it'll just go away. Like it didn't happen. That the feelings I'm feeling are just moments. They'll pass. They're just feelings of, it'll go away, essentially, if I just don't think about it. And that's how I coped. And I coped with, ironically, silencing myself. And it's something that I did at pace that has evolved outside of pace, that I have taught myself to not speak up and to silence myself. And it is something that I, to this day, as I'm sitting here talking to you, whoever is watching this, that I still struggle with speaking up. And I have a really hard time being honest with myself, because I've just kept it in. I've just kept all of these thoughts and feelings and emotions in. And it's moments like this where I can release it right here. And I think that's why I'm here today. I think this is actually a full circles coming to moment with coping. I need to be here today to show you this, because this is what I've been holding on to since I was 18 years old. I think it's interesting that this is happening during a pandemic. I think it's interesting that we are having this conversation while we are told to stay at home, while we are being enforced to sit within ourselves and navigate everything. I don't think it's coincidental that we are here today in this moment talking about what has happened and what is potentially currently still happening at pace right now. And I guess this is coping, that this is, because we are forced to look at ourselves in the mirror, right? This is a moment where we have to reflect back and look. And when people were coming forward on Facebook, on the Facebook group, on the island of misfit toys, talking about very, very specific situations where they have experienced forms of discrimination, neglect, just endless amounts of, whether it was racial, even sexual allegations, like just every form of discrimination and oppression that you can imagine in one institution. And it was just flooding, literally hours, just one after the other. People were talking about their experiences online. And seeing that, you could not help but witnessing that and be triggered if you were someone who experienced similar oppression and feelings and trauma. And ironically, from viewing all of that, I did find a sense of community. I found a sense of, again, looking back at 18-year-old Kendyl, who was so excited to be a part of this school and this university. And the part of the program and the part of the university that I still cling on to this day is our community. It is my classmates. It is my friends. Friends who are literally sitting within reach here. And to see multiple people who have meaning in my life and impact in my life and hearts in my life, and to see them equally going through their own journeys of processing and coping and releasing, again, 4 years of bent up and mushed together emotions that are finally being unraveled in this moment. It is unifying us. And I can feel it. I can feel the unity. I can feel everyone's hearts in this moment. And it is, I don't feel alone in this moment. That for the first time, everything that I had repressed, I know in this moment that it wasn't just me. And that together we are healing. I am healing, my friends are healing, my classmates are healing, people I do not even know are healing through this process of talking about our truths. And that's my therapy.